Pnawn da, a chroeso I bawb yma I gyfarfod cyffredinol blynyddol Bwrdd Iechyd Prifysgol Betsi Cadwaladr ar y 9 o'r Fenaf 2026. A dyn ni yma yn y rhyl, yng nghanol y rhyl, yn farchnad Brenhines. Ac mae heddiw, mae'n wir gallwn ni alw y lle yn ôl I enw traddodiadol Synnu Rhyl, achos mae yn braf yma unwaith eto ac mae'n brysur. Dyn ni reit yng nghanol y dre mwyn rhoi cyfle i'r cyhoedd ymuno â ni ac nid yn unig ar gyfer y pethau ffurfiol ond hefyd I fod yn edrych ar amryw o stondinau sydd o gwmpas yn cynnig gwasanaethau pwysig iawn yn y byd iechyd a lles. Felly, dyn ni'n falch iawn bod cynifer wedi gosod stondinau yn y ffair iechyd yna, ac os nad ydych chi wedi gweld y stondinau yna, gnewch ar ddiwedd y cyfarfod os gwelwch yn dda. Mae gennym ni fusnes ffurfiol, wrth gwrs, fel ym mhob cyfarfod cyffredinol. Mae yna gwestiynau, rhai cwestiynau wedi clwyno ymlaen llaw, ond mi fyddai'n troi at rheini ar ddiwedd y cyfarfod. Felly, ymddiheuriadau am absynoldeb, mae yna nifer wedi ymddiheurio heddiw am amryw resymau. Michael Alvin yn un, Angela Wood, ac hefyd mae Dr Claire Day, dwi'n meddwl, wedi ymddiheurio yn ogystal. Dwi ddim yn ymwybodol yn neb arall, ond os oes ymddeiriadau eraill, nawn ni nodi nhw. Yr eitem nesaf ar yr agenda ydy datganiadau o fuddiant yn ymwneud ar agenda heddiw. Sy'n rhywun eisiau datgan buddiant ychwanegol. Mae buddiannau yn cael eu nodi ar y gofrestr sydd ar y wefan wrth gwrs, ond os oes gennych chi rhywbeth da chi eisiau tynnu sylw ato fo unrhyw un heddiw? Na. Felly awn ni ymlaen i'r eitemau dyn ni am gyflwyno I chi. Mae gennym ni adroddiadau, dyn ni am rannu efo chi mewn munud, ac yna mae gen I gyflwyniadau gan rhai o'n gydweithwyr. Un yn ymwneud â datblygiad yr ysbyty yn y rhyl, yr Royal Alex, ac hefyd yr system electronic. Dyn ni wedi bod yn rhan ohono fo I dosbarthu meddyginiaeth ac yn y blaen, yr EPMA, byddwn ni yn clywed am y datblygiadau yna, a wedyn byddai'n cyfeirio trai'r cwestiynau dyn ni wedi derbyn ar gyfer y cyfarfod blynyddol. Felly, yn gyntaf, mae Carol fel ein prif weithredwr, prif swyddog am fynd trwy'r adroddiad blynyddol I chi, ac mae yna gopïau o'r adroddiad ar y bwrdd, ac gawn ni ryw 20 munud, chwarter awr ar gyfer yr eitem yma, Carol. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Well, I've successfully navigated the steps. That's the first task. Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Prynawn da, pawb, Carol Shilby dwi, Prif Weithredw. It is so lovely to be back at the annual general meeting. And sometimes it's only once a year I get to see people. And so some very familiar faces to me. Lovely to see you again. And thank you very much again for supporting this event. I was very keen when I came to the Health Board that we increasingly have our events in the heart of our community, and it's fantastic to be here in Rhyl this afternoon. My job just over the next 15 minutes or so just to share an overview of the work of the Health Board over the last year, and I will just give a little hint at the first few months of this year as well. I will be supported by other colleagues. Teresa Owen will present the annual quality report and Russell Caldicott the accounts, and then we'll get into often what's the highlight of our colleagues from the Health Board demonstrating to the public the work that is being done. So fantastic couple of presentations coming up. And as always with an annual general meeting, very keen to hear feedback and questions, and we'll cover some of that as well. So if I can get this to work, there we go. Let me just check. So who we are. We are the largest health board in Wales, and that not just geographically, of course, but with the number of people who live in the region, 700,000, but also 20,000 staff. And that number has increased significantly since 2019-20 by about 4,000 staff. And it gives me an opportunity at every AGM to offer my personal thanks to everyone who works in the health board for the efforts that they are deploying every single day. It's a 365-day a year service, 24 hours of every day. And the work of our staff is quite remarkable. In our annual report, we will only ever be able to share just a small snapshot of that, but important work in there nonetheless. I'd like us, the Chief Exec, to also thank board members, executive team members, senior leaders and managers across the organisation. Often they're the people that don't get the thanks, and I want to offer my gratitude for your support throughout this last year. The NHS is a challenging old place at times, and we're probably at the forefront of some of those challenges. So the resilience, the sheer determination to improve is something that I see every single day, and it encourages me. And so thank you to you all for the support. We operate across 3 main district general hospitals, of course. I've got 17 community hospitals and a whole host of other essential services in the community. And as a health board, we're committed to focusing more of our time, effort and resource in the community. So you will see, if you cover the board closely, that this year we agreed 4 strategic intent statements. And 2 of those statements are directly focused on primary and community support and place-based care and people in our communities. And I'm delighted that we work with so many community organisations, and I've just been hearing of the work that's been happening, and local colleagues demonstrating the relationship that exists between voluntary sector, voluntary groups and the health board. And long may that strength continue to grow. We also provide mental health services and specialist services. So we provide prison healthcare services as well in one of the largest prisons in the UK. And I was delighted, along with the chair and some other colleagues, to visit HMP Bcuhb during the year to see the fantastic work that they are doing with people and their health. We're also responsible, of course, for primary and community care, and that's where people get the most of their healthcare from their GP practice. Not necessarily from their GP now, of course, because, you know, direct access to physiotherapy or direct access to nurses and other healthcare professionals means the offer in primary care really is a broader one. We've had our challenges in dental provision, well, not just in North Wales, but across the UK, but those improvements are coming through. And of course, the role of optometrists and opticians in our communities are part of the wider offer of health services, and essential they are, and working closely with them. But I also want to draw out the work that we do as a health board with the 140 or more pharmacies across Wales. It really is an area that we are leading the rest of Wales in. And so delighted to give a shout out, if you like, to that part of our provision here in North Wales. And for those who came to the AGM previously, you may remember the research project that was taking place with Bangor University on remote access to medication. So pharmacy has been key for us. I want to offer some thanks as well to those partners that we work with day in, day out. I've mentioned the voluntary sector, and I get to know people and see them at events. I shan't single anyone out, but there's some great colleagues here. But North Wales Police, Fire and Rescue Service, local authorities, of which we have 6, and further and higher education, of which we have great partnerships. So in order to do our work, we have to work closely and enjoy a strong relationship with our partners. I mentioned that the NHS is challenged, and we're probably at the forefront of some of that challenge. What's been the big issues that we've been focusing on as a board and as an organisation over the last year? I could stand here for a week and talk about all the services that we've been working on, but I'm going to just draw out a couple of key areas. We know that the public feel very strongly that they feel they wait too long a time for treatments. And we've been working on that. And I'm going to share some of the progress we've made on that. We know we must improve access to urgent and emergency care. We know that because people tell us, people who experience the pathway, but also our staff, our colleagues who work in that system. We've got a massive estate as a NHS, but much of it is old and in disrepair, and some parts of it simply do not meet modern standards, and that's a challenge. We've also got buildings that, with some investment, can be brought up to a good standard and again be a very useful asset in local communities. And we're still on the shift to new technologies. So the speed with which the NHS can keep up with AI, for example, that's a real challenge to us. And most of us are using AI in our day-to-day lives, whether we know it or not. Managing the money is key. We've made a lot of progress on this over the last few years, but the financial allocation into public sector has been limited, and that is set to continue into next year. So we know that that is something, as the biggest health board, £2.5 billion, we have a huge responsibility to spend the public's hard-earned money really well. And we're going to have a presentation on that. And then finally, amongst our challenges that we've drawn out is the long-term sustainability of services. How should we provide services for the longer term? I was listening to Radio 4 this morning, and Dame Louise Casey was on there talking about social care and the provision of support for people, particularly in their older years. That hasn't kept up with the change in demography, and neither have health services. We will have some decisions to make on sustainable services. Just in terms of 10 minutes that I have left here, I want to just talk a little bit about the successes. And these are successes generated by colleagues in the organisation with our partners. And again, I'm just going to pull out a couple of areas. I'm going to focus on planned care because this issue of waiting lists and waiting times has been really key. And I am so proud to say this organisation did phenomenal work last year, absolutely phenomenal. And I'm going to share some of the numbers with you. We have treated, we have a referral to treatment list, if you like, a long waiting list, and About 18 months, 2 years ago, we were talking about the numbers of people who were waiting 208 weeks. That's 4 years for their referral to their treatment. We dealt with 4 years. We were then looking at 3 years, and we had several thousand of those, and they're down to 6 now. And then, of course, 2 years, 104-week waits is where every single health board is trying to get to 0. And we went from a cohort of 49,600 people to 2,340 people. We didn't get to 0. We wanted to get to 0. We didn't quite get there, but we made a fantastic effort. And we're now on that measure meeting the Welsh Government set de-escalation standard. So I'm delighted to share that news. And then importantly, on the first outpatient appointment, the aim is for 98% of people to have their first outpatient appointment within 1 year. Now, we know 1 year is still a very long time and we want to move that down, but that's the standard at the moment. And we went from having 32,000 people waiting over 1 year to 5,000. That's 5,000 too many, of course, but that was phenomenal. And that was as a result of very intensive work happening every weekend from September to February, 2,500 additional appointments each weekend across our 3 district general hospitals. And my thanks to everyone who participated in that. Our challenge now is to sustain and move further, and that's the work that we're doing currently. But we've had successes in other places, and I mentioned pharmacy earlier and medicines, and the new master's programme at Bangor University was a new major milestone for us in North Wales. Being able to provide education, high quality placements in practice will build further pharmacy provision in North Wales. And what was really, really good about this is that this was for local people and learning in the language of their choice. We've continued to invest and strengthen services across our communities, pharmacy, dentistry and optometry. Approximately £6 million of investment into dental services, which continue to be challenged. And some people say it's a bit like a leaky bucket. We're putting more contracts in, but sometimes we get contracts handed back. But our intent to increase dental provision to the people of North Wales is clear, and we're working hard in relation to that. We've strengthened and formalised strategic planning arrangements, and the work is underway on a 10-year strategy and clinical services plan. This will help us to build sustainable services for the longer term. It will be challenging work, there is no doubt about that, but we are ready as an organisation to really face some of the tricky decisions at times that will come in order to provide the best outcomes for the people of North Wales. I'm grateful for all of the input that colleagues shared in the latter part of last year in helping to get that work underway. And then finally on this slide, we must run a good health board. We must run an effective health board at the core. And we've had our challenges in the past as a health board in that regard. I'm delighted that, again, Audit Wales, who review us from outside of the organisation, say that we have strengthened those governance arrangements. We have a strong board in place, good challenge, and we're building from a firm foundation. And then finally, not that far from here, across in Llandudno, the development of the North Wales Surgical Centre is nearing completion. It's been a challenging build for anyone who's been involved in that, but is a really important signal, nearly £30 million investment in that surgical centre, which means we'll be able to carry out more orthopaedic operations. And ideally, we'll be knocking on the door of Welsh Government for phase 2 of that, where we could develop even further. And here, literally a stone's throw away, the Royal Alex, and you're going to hear more about that. And you're also going to hear about the digital transformation. And last year was the biggest ever year for bringing in new digital systems that help our colleagues to deliver great care every time. We're going to hear about EPMA, which is medicines, and you'll find out all about it shortly. But I would also say a whole range of other services and systems around maternity, around radiology, etc. So a huge thanks to everyone who both doing the day job, but also making those improvements happen. And then finally, just a couple of things to say in conclusion. As we look forward, an AGM is often actually geared about looking back, but we're looking forward and we're already almost halfway through 26, 27. And we're building on the work that took place last year, particularly on the challenges that matter most to people. So access to their waiting times, how long they're going to wait, and improving the quality of services and reducing some of the harm that happens if people have to wait too long in the urgent and emergency pathway. And I'm delighted to say that our improvements are starting to really show now on the handover times from our ambulance service into our ED departments. It's early days, but a huge thanks to staff who've worked to redesign the way in which we offer that service, and it is starting to come through. Strengthening the workforce and leadership is key, and our work on culture is really important. We have over 200 culture change leaders across the organisation, and we were here in Rail just a few months ago, learning about their work, recognising their efforts and celebrating their success. A lot more to do on culture, but we're absolutely committed to working with people to enable Betsy to be the best place to work. Our focus as we go forward will be increasingly on primary and community care and improving health, and not merely treating ill health. So that's got to be key. And then providing colleagues with the right tools to do their job. So we have a very ambitious outlook on the use of digital and on the electronic health record, and for people to be able to access their information, so the NHS app as well. So that's probably it from me. I'm checking the time. There we are. Oh, David, 2 minutes to go before my slot's finished. So again, huge thanks to everyone. I apologise profusely that we're not able, in the short time we've got available, to share everyone's success this year. But we know it happens day in, day out across the organisation. It was fantastic chatting with the renal team. I did share that I was a renal nurse by background, but fantastic work going on. And we have services in North Wales that are leading the way across the country. So I'm very grateful to everyone for all of their hard work. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch o galon i chi gyd. Hand back. I think I'm handing over to Teresa. Diolch, Teresa.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Dwi am siarad yn Gymraeg. I'm going to speak in Welsh this afternoon. We've only got some short points, but want to cover the quality agenda, yr agenda ansawdd. Dwi'n gobeithio fod gyn pawb i offer clywed. Teresa Owen di'n enw i. Ydw i'n gyfarwyddwr gweithredol gyda'r gweithwyr perthynol a proffesiynol i iechyd ac hefyd gwyddor iechyd. A dwi yma ar ran Clara ac Angela a Jane heddiw, sef y cyfarwyddwyr clinigol, ond hefyd o ran y bwrdd, oherwydd mae ansawdd yn perthyn i bawb yn y bwrdd iechyd. Bob aelod o staff, mae ansawdd mor bwysig. Ond beth bynnag, rheswm dwi yma heddiw ydy, mae'r adroddiad blynyddol ar ansawdd yn rhywbeth hanfodol o fewn y system iechyd yng Nghymru. Mae yna ddisgwyliad i ni rhoi adroddiad at ei gilydd, a mi fydd yr adroddiad yn mynd i'r bwrdd y mis Medi leni yn llawn. Felly ryw ambell i bigion dwi am tynnu allan heddiw a rei o'r prif negeseuon fydd yn yr adroddiad yna. Yn ystod 25-26, a dyna ydy'r cyfnod yr adroddiad, mae'r ffocws yn gyffredinol di bod ar cryfhau ansawdd, diogelwch, llywodraethu a hefyd dysgu sefydliadol. A mae yna gynnydd wedi digwydd ar draws yr elfennau yna i gyd, a hynny tra da ni dal o dan y system fesura arbennig. Wrth gwrs, mae rhaid i fi cydnabod y fan hyn, mae'r prif risg i ni fel bwrdd iechyd o ran ansawdd ar hyn o bryd ydy'r mynediad, yr access fel petai, y mynediad prydlon i gleifion at ofal ddiogel ac effeithiol. Ond fel mae'r prif weithredwr wedi dweud, da ni yn wneud cynnydd yn y maes yna. Wedyn dwi am trafod y 6 elfen sydd yn cael ei ddangos ar y sleid y fanne, a rhoi ambell i bwynt o heina. Na'i'm trafod bob un pwynt sydd ar y sleidiau, ond mi wna i drio pigo rei o'r pethau sy'n pwysica i ni, a gobeithio fydd o ddiddordeb i chi fel aelodau'r cyhoedd a staff o fewn y bwrdd iechyd. Dwi am ddechrau drwy edrych ar y gostyngiadau sylweddol mewn arosiadau am ofal. Mae Carol yn barod i trafod rei o'r manylion, wedyn na'i'm dros heina, ond mae yna gynnydd da wedi digwydd, wrth gwrs mwy i'w wneud. Da ni'n gwybod fod pobl sydd yn aros yn rhy hir fo hynna'n niweidiol iechyd, wedyn da ni isio symud ymlaen efo hynna'n llwyr. Ond wrth gwrs, be da ni'n trio wneud ydy trawsnewid rei o'r llwybra brys na sydd yn digwydd. A mae'n enwedig o gwmpas cancer, ac o'n i'n sylwi ar y stondina yn y cefn heddiw. Dwi'n meddwl fod y maes dermatoleg yn maes da ni angen gwneud fwy arno fo. Mae yna waith da yn digwydd yn barod y fanna hefo teledormoscopi. Wedyn mae pethau yn symud ymlaen efo technoleg ac yn helpu rhoi mynediad i pobl sydd efo problemau croen. Ac wrth gwrs, da ni'n gweithio ar draws Gogledd Cymru. Mae gynnon ni nyrsys arbenigol hefyd sydd yn helpu ni hefo'r brys bennu, y triage na sy'n mor bwysig yn systema ni. A hyd yn oed pethau fel endoscopi, erbyn hyn, da ni'n defnyddio endoscopi sbwng a rei achlysuron. Mae hynna'n eitha modern ac yn symud ni mlaen yn llwyr. Dwi wrth y modd fod yna 2 beiriant radiotherapi newydd yn y ganolfan cancer yma yng Ngogledd Cymru. Ac o'n i'n sbio ar stondin magis gynt, wrth yn bod agor y magis, y ganolfan magis wedi agor erbyn hyn, lle arbennig i bobl sydd angen help emosiynol, seicolegol, chydig bach o le, deud y gwir, ac i siarad am bethau ymarferol. Wedyn cynnydd arbennig, swn i'n deud, o ran yr ochr cancer. Na i symud ymlaen at y sleid nesaf, a da ni'n sôn am y gwelldiannau o ran iechyd meddwl, mae sydd yn agos iawn i'n chalon ni fel mae rei ohonoch chi'n gwybod. A da ni wedi gweld gwella amseroedd yn yr asesiadau a'r triniaethau yn y maes oedolion ac yn y maes plant, a di bod yn cyrraedd y safona'r targedau ers cryn amser erbyn hyn. Cynnydd da. Mae yna rhaglen fawr o waith i digwydd o ran yr gwaith y Coleg Brenhinol y Seikiatryddion. Mae hwnna wedi bod yn waith bwysig, a mae hwnna'n symud ymlaen ŵan dan ofal y prif weithredwr. Mae gynnon ni ODG iechyd meddwl, grŵp sydd yn gorchwylio mewn ffordd y gwaith ar iechyd meddwl a'r cynnydd sy'n cael ei wneud yn y maes strategol. A mae yna eitem ar hwnna yn y bwrdd yfory. Mae'r gwaith ar 111 dewis 2 di symud ymlaen, mae hwnna'n rhan o'r byd arferol a busnes arferol erbyn hyn ar draws Cymru, ac ni yn Gogledd Cymru yn symud hwnna ymlaen. A da ni hefyd wedi gweld cynnydd arbennig trwy wneud yn siŵr fod na ddim gormod o bobl yn mynd tu allan i ardal. Mae un yn mynd allan o'r ardal yn ormod, ond da ni wedi gwneud cynnydd. Mwy i wneud, ond da ni'n wneud cynnydd da. 2 pwynt ola yna werth sôn amdanyn nhw. Iechyd meddwl amenedigol, yr perinatal mental health. Wrth gwrs, mae gynnon ni'r gwlau erbyn hyn yng Nghaer, ac mae'r adborth hyd yn hyn yn bositif. Ac wrth gwrs, mae'r gwaith gamblo erbyn hyn ar draws Cymru yn cael ei arwain gynnon ni yma y Meti Cydwaladyr. Dwi'n am sôn gormod am y sleid nesa, ond mae rhaid i fi na sôn am y gwelliannau digidol. Mae hwn wedi bod yn faes lle dwi'n meddwl bod ni wedi wneud cynnydd arbennig yn ystod 25-26. Na'im sôn llawer mwy am y rhagnodi mae Carol di sôn am hwnna, ond mae hwnna'n gwneud gwahaniaeth mawr i gleifion. Da ni gyd ar adegau angen sgript, a mae hwn yn system sy'n helpu ni yn llwyr. Mae gynnon ni'r system newydd yn radioleg sy'n helpu ni gweld y delweddau, yn helpu ni symud y delweddau ymlaen ac yn helpu'r bobl a staff clinigol trafod y delweddau yn gyflymach. System RISP ydi o, a ni oedd y cyntaf y methu i roi hwnna yn ei le. Mae yna system Badgernet yn y byd mamolaeth, mae hwnna'n bwysig, a mae gynnon ni hefyd gwaith ar hyn o bryd yn digwydd yn y maes iechyd meddwl o ran wneud yn siŵr fod gynnon ni system electroneg, a dwi'n gweld rei o'r pobl sydd yn gweithio ar y system yma heddiw mor bwysig ac yn edrych ymlaen at y camau nesaf yn y gwaith yna. O'n i am sôn mymryn os gai am rei o'r gwelliannau o ran ansawdd hefyd, a lle da ni angen symud ymlaen. A da ni yn gwybod fod yna rhywfaint o waith ar y gwaith llywodraethu i digwydd yn dda, ymateb yn brydlon i gwynion a digwyddiadau. Mae gynnon ni welliannau da o ran cwblhau adolygiadau a marwolaethau yn brydlon. A da ni hefyd wedi integreiddio gymaint o systema o fewn y bwr iechyd, fel bod hi'n haws i'r claf cael ymateb sydyn ac amserol. Ac wrth gwrs, da ni'n gweithio'n galad i ddysgu gwersi yn gyson, yn lleol, a reit ar draws y bwrdd iechyd, a mae gynnon ni fforwm dysgu o fewn y bwrdd iechyd sydd yn helpu ni gyda'r gwaith yna. Ond fel y gwelwch chi o'r sleid, mae yna fwy o waith i ni wneud erbyn hyn, a da ni'n gwybod hynny ac yn adnabod fod yna fwy i wneud o hyd. Maddewch i mi, dwi'n gwybod fod yna just un sleid di troi fan hyn gynnau wrth i mi droi'n papurau meddewch i mi. Ma'n ddrwg gynnau. Un di troi. A da ni'n gwybod fod yna angen wneud fwy o gwaith. Da ni'n gwybod fod yr adrannau brys yn llawn ac yn brysur, a mae'r staff yn gweithio mor galad ac yn bwysicach mae'r cleifion ddim yn cael y gorau ohono ni fel system a'r gofal sydd ar gael gyn yn clinigwyr ni a'r arbenigwyr. Wedyn mae hwnna yn ffocws gry ni wrth i ni symud ymlaen. Da ni hefyd yn gwybod fod yna bobl sydd yn gwlau ni llawer yn rhy hir. Gwrs, da ni'n gwybod fod nhw'n colli cryfder o ran nerth ac o ran iechyd oherwydd fod nhw yn sefydliadau ni'n rhy hir. Wedyn, da ni'n gweithio ar hwnna yn arbennig hefyd. Ac wrth gwrs, yr ddau ola na fanna, da ni yn gweithio yn galad i wneud yn siŵr fod gyd o'r rhannau o'r system yn briodol a bod ni'n gweithio hofo'n partneriaid yn agos iawn. A mae yna gwaith arbennig wedi cael ei wneud ar y vision hynny yw be da ni'n trio i gyfleu a be da ni'n trio i llwyddo gyda'n gilydd hefo'n partneriaid. Ac yn ola, mae gynnon ni wrth gwrs pobl yn helpu ni arbenigwyr wedi dod i fewn i'r bwrdd iechyd mwyn wneud yn siŵr fod ni yn hitio'r targedau ac yn rhoi cymorth arbenigol i ni yn y gwaith. Dwi bron yna. O'n i'n sôn am y llywodraethu gynt, a mae'r gwaith yma yn bendant yn ei le ar draws y bwrdd iechyd. Da ni'n ddiolchgar iawn i bawb sydd wedi helpu ni o ran y gwaith yna. Mae rhaid mi ddeud, dwi'n falch iawn bod yna gwelliant o ran yr mortality reviews, a da ni'n trafod hynny yn y pwyllgor ansawdd diogelwch a phrofiad. Ac wrth gwrs, da ni hefyd yn dod â gyd o'r adroddiadau at ein gilydd fel bod ni'n dysgu drwy'r amser o beth sy'n dod gyn y crwner, beth sydd yn dod o lan cwynion, y materion sy'n cael eu codi ar y wardiau neu yn ED neu yn cymunedau ni wrth gwrs. A da ni hefyd yn gweithio reit ar draws y bwrdd iechyd ac yn estyn allan ar draws Cymru gyfan mwyn cael y gwybodaeth. Dwi'n wedi trafod gormod ar profiad y claf, ond wrth gwrs mae hwnna'n fater hynod bwysig yn ei. Wrach mae hwn ydy'r sleid ola ond un. A fel da chi'n gweld y fanna, da ni'n trio cael adborth gyn yn cleifio ni drwy gydol o'r amser erbyn hyn, fel bod ni'n gallu cynllunio a dylunio'n gwasanaethau ni yn well. gwrando di'r peth pwysica llwn ni wneud fel bwrdd iechyd ar adega. A da ni wedi dysgu gymaint drwy wneud y gwaith ar iechyd meddwl. Fwy i wneud, waeth mi fod yn onast efo chi gyd. Ond da ni wedi dysgu a dwi'n meddwl fod yr pwyslais ar gwrando mor bwysig. Da ni hefyd yn defnyddio'r gwybodaeth yna erbyn hyn i drio symud ni mlaen o bob oedran, nid yn unig oedolion a pobl hŷn, a mae gynnon ni erbyn hyn y fforwm a'r lleisia y pobl ifanc yn dod i fewn. Mae hwnna wedi cael ei sefydlu a da ni mor falch o'r pwyslais ar hynny. A da ni wedi cael trafodaethau fel bwrdd sut i symud hynna mlaen a dwi'n meddwl fe hunain braf i'r dyfodol. A dyma chi'r sleid o'r a fyddwch chi falch o glwad, waeth mi fod yn onast. Felly mae gynnon ni ffocws dal i fynd ar y llwybr a gofal. Y llwybr a gofal i gyd yn arbennig yn y maes iechyd brys a gofal mewn argyfwng. Da ni hefyd, fel mae Carol di sôn, yn falch iawn o weld yr hwb llawfeddygaeth yn agor yn Llandudno. Dwi'n edrych ymlaen at hwnna fel ferch lleol o Dyffryn Conwy. Mynd i newid y profiad i'n cleifio ni, dwi'n meddwl yn llwyr. Mae gynnon ni'r llwybra brys y gwaith yn y maes canser, dwi'n sôn amdanyn nhw ar ddechrau'r cyflwyniad. Ac o'n i'n gweld rei o'r stondina gynt ar yr ochr primary care. Mae rhai mi ddweud, mae hwnna'n elfen da ni eisiau symud ymlaen. Y ffocws na ar cymunedau o'r cychwyn. Community by design, welwch chi o'n aml yn cael ei drafod. Hynny yw bod ni'n trio gwneud yn siŵr fod y cleifion yn cael y gofal yn nes at eu cartrefi nhw. Ar ddau bwynt ola yna, sicrhau bod ni yn dysgu gwersi fel bwrdd iechyd ac yn effeithiol i'r gyfer y dyfodol, a bod ni'n dysgu o'r cwynion a gwella ansawdd gofal mhob un rhan o'r bwrdd iechyd. Ac yn ola, bod ni'n sicrhau bod ni'n gwrando'n astyd ar lleisia pobl a fod hynna'n helpu ni i symud ymlaen ac yn llunio i'r dyfodol. Wedyn dyna oedd y prwyf pwyntiau. Dwi'n diolch i chi am wrando. Un neu ddau o bwyntiau bach dyn nhw, a dwi'n siŵr fyddwch chi'n edrych ymlaen at yr adroddiad yn y bwrdd ym mis Medi. Diolch yn fawr iawn, a na i mynd yn ôl at Carol a'r cadeirydd. Diolch yn fawr. O, dwi'n meddwl mae Russell sy'n nesaf. Waeth i mi wrach troi drosodd i Russell dy hunain iawn efo pawb. Russell, da chi'n iawn? Are you okay to come up?
Diolch. So Russell Caldecott Dwi, Cyfarwyddwr Gyffredol Clethu Dwi. So I'm the Executive Director of Finance. I'll be just talking you through some of the financial slides and performance over the 25-26 financial year. Oh, and the little gadget works as well, so brilliant. So that's a good start. So really just to outline what are our requirements as a health board. So the first one is the financial duty. So expenditure over 3 years does not exceed our income that we've received over that same period. That's quite a challenge, actually. You've probably seen some of the Auditor General reports on prior year position. So health boards across Wales are really finding that difficult to live within financial allocations. And I think Carol alluded to it earlier, a 1.11% settlement, and you all know what inflation is looking like. So that gives added challenge, of course, to live within the financial constraints. The second is to prepare a medium-term financial plan for the following 3 years, and I'll talk very briefly about that at the end of the slide deck, if I may. There are some other targets, so pay 95% of all of our non-NHS suppliers within 30 days receipt of goods. That's really important. £2.6 billion moves through the organisation. A big amount of that is non-pay for services goods from our local partners. We need to make sure their cash flows are appropriate and we transact that cash through. We have to get within a tolerance level of cash holding at the end of the year. And then we have a separate fund, which is capital. So effectively capital is to maintain or buy additional material equipment. So it's bigger items of expenditure. And what we have to do is effectively not overspend our allocation, but we can only underspend it by £500,000. So those are our key targets. How do we do? So we also don't just rate ourselves. So just to be aware, Audit Wales review our account submissions. So we submitted our draft accounts the 31st of May, and effectively our auditors are on board with us to go through those accounts. They have not changed our outturn from draft to final audited submission, and the Auditor General signed off our opinion on the 30th of June, and that was submitted to Welsh Government. 30th of June is the deadline to get that submission through. That's a real feather in the cap for everyone, especially my team, and as a thanks to my team really for meeting those deadlines in producing that accurate data that was able to be audited. We also have developed a mapping tool which gives full access to our transactions through Audit Wales for them to see every element of our profiling within those individual controls. True and fair opinion, so that's a clean bill of health as well. So all of our accounts reflect materially all of the transactions correctly. So that's really good as an assurance part. The last part, there is a regulatory opinion as well. So because we did not hit break even, as you'll see when we go through, as with 5 other health boards, we do get a regulatory opinion, and that is that we didn't meet the key financial duty to only spend what we earn or receive over those 3 years, on those 3 rolling years. But I'll explain that further as we go through the slide deck. So here's our actual performance. So as you can see there, 2.441 billion was our allocation in the current year. That is a phenomenal sum of resource as a system to manage. We are circa 23-24% of NHS Wales economy, and as a consequence, therefore, we are fairly material in our movements. We didn't hit those duties. We didn't hit. Unfortunately, we actually spent 2.458 million, so 17.3 million deficit, and we'll show how that plays out on that 3-year key duty later. Capital expenditure, we hit on the nail, and we've hit on the nail consistently. So we've spent £59 million, 59.1 million of our target. £59 million was the actual spend. So within that tolerance of no more than £500,000 underspend. So that's really positive. And again, we've hit our better payment practice code. So we've paid our suppliers 96.9%. Non-NHS suppliers transacted within 30 days through that cash model. So tick again. And of course, if we look at the integrated model, integrated medium-term plan, one of the conditions of that is setting a balance plan. We didn't set a balance plan, so that transacts into a 1-year plan. And what we have to do with that is go into a recovery position to determine how we move to a balanced position. So that's why that's not blacked in. And then, of course, the final one is the cash holding. And of course, we had 2.6 million, which is almost bang in the middle of where the range we wanted to be. This slide just further articulates where we've got to on that 3-year break even. So 25-26, you can see that highlighted. We did have some additional pressures that we had to manage in year. So the employer's national insurance was a challenge for us. The cost uplift factor for across the border care as well, and inflationary impact, all of those played a part in us moving away from our target. But clearly we also have additional capacity areas and additional challenges, financial challenges in the year that we've experienced that moved us to that position of a 17.3 million deficit. We did set a balanced plan. We did set a compliant plan. And so we did miss our compliant plan, unfortunately. How that adds up, if we've got 24, 25 and 23, 24 there as well. So we've got a cumulative position of 49 million, and that's why we failed to hit what is the key financial duty. Just a bit of analysis very quickly. I know time's against us, but I'll whiz through this if I may. Where do we spend our money in terms of our sector? So this is effectively, we call it by division, but this is the areas of spend. So mental health, learning disabilities, 8% of our resource. Commissioner contracts, that's Countess of Chester, Robert Jones, Agnes Hunt. continuing healthcare provision, of course, with local providers and supported colleagues and partners. So a lot of resource goes into those. We've got Bcuhb services. Women's a good example. So we use resource across the services. And then we've got support services that runs off that. So that's an example of that is the estates and the utilities. So unfortunately, we have to pay equivalent of council tax and model, and we have our utility bills in terms of electricity, gas, waters, etc. And also within digital, we've got a lot of systems to maintain. So there's a high degree of expenditure within all of our systems. The biggest expenditure element, though, of course, is our integrated health communities. We have three Bcuhb Glenclwyd, Gwynedd and Wrexham Mailer. So there are three main hospital sites, but also community-based care within those. They consume a significant amount of our resource, 1.4 billion, and circa 400 to 500 million pounds each one of those. So significant amounts of resource. Hopefully that moved on. And then just really to share that by category. So again, the percentage splits are there. And we've moved across. So non-pay, essentially drugs, clinical supplies. Drugs are circa 100 million pounds a year just on drug provision. And again, 100 million pounds circa for clinical supplies. So very expensive, but that's where the non-pay sits and what drives our non-pay predominantly. Pay, 50% of our resources committed against pay, with circa just shy of 400 million pounds spent annually on nurse care provision, circa 300 million pounds spent on medics. So you can see there are significant sums and significant staff groups and resource that we commit. The other contracts, we've talked a little bit about contracts anyway, but continuing healthcare is clearly a significant partner for us in transferring patients and flow of patients through the hospitals. And that's a key element for us to work within. And of course, we've got councillors Chester and Robert Jones I've mentioned. And then we've got primary care services as well, which predominantly is GMS. And again, we've got a drugs prescribing charge, 130 million pounds, that makes up that element. For each of those two slides, you'll see that actually we've remained fairly consistent in our percentages. And I think the ambition of the Health Board and future in government is to move some of that resource through into more local provision of care. So moving patients through to either at home and care for those individuals at home, or moving into the community and away from the acute provision, if possible. I'll give you a little indication. We changed the charts just to jazz it up. So you've got a pie chart now instead of a bar chart. But essentially, this is where we spend our capital. So capital is different to revenue. This is where we spent essentially our 59 million pounds. You can see there's a big yellow blob. That is Llandudno. And of course, that is the development, the major development that Carol mentioned earlier for our regional elective hub. We're also got their diagnostic services. We've got a Linac machine within diagnostics, which actually I was surprised to learn is more a treatment tool, and it concentrates beams through to treat. So very much radiation based. Fire alarm systems maintenance moves through. And we've also, of course, had to procure a lot of computers, servers, IT infrastructure, and investment into digital. So they're all captured in that round. The reason other expenditure is slightly higher, we did have to replace the electrical infrastructure within Bcuhb Glenclwyd. So that is why that is slightly higher at 2.9 million in the current financial year. If I talk briefly about our payment model, and again, this is really important for the local economy. We are a major employer, not just of direct employment, but also services and goods. And through our local supply, we hit that 96.9%, which is sort of the middle figure just there on the left. But we've managed to hit high percentage figures anyway on the bottom figures. And just for context, that's roughly 7,000 invoices every week. That is 1,000 invoices that are received, transacted and paid every single day, 1,000 invoices. So it's no mean feat to keep that show on the road, and the team have done a fabulous job in maintaining that payment cycle. So what I'll do is just summarise really. So where are we? So as a health board, we did have a 17.3 million deficit. That is not what we planned to have, but we've submitted our accounts through the national deadline, 1st of May. The accounts are audited by Audit Wales, and we received a clean bill of health, and the Auditor General signed those off and submitted them to Welsh Government 30th of June. We did not change from draft to final submission, and we had a full clean bill of health as a consequence. The regulatory opinion was unfortunately adverse, so we did get a qualification on regulatory opinion. That's because we had a deficit and didn't hit the key financial duty. As I mentioned, 5 other health boards are in that same place, and I know the Auditor General has released a publication in that matter. We achieved the capital, which is great, and we didn't underspend it by too much, so we managed to utilise all of our resource, and better payment practice code was delivered in terms of paying 95% of our non-NHS suppliers and transacting those payments through the system within 30 days. If I may, it's not in the pack, but just to allude on to 26-27. So as I alluded earlier, we did submit a plan. We've submitted a £43 million deficit plan. We are working with a £46 million savings ask to hit that plan. We are looking as a health board to move to a stretch target of £63 million in savings ask. And if we're able to secure that position, of course, then we would receive a £26 million allocation to support the Welsh risk pool or mitigation for the Welsh risk pool cost. And that would move us back into break even and us be able to achieve the key financial duty in the current year and targeting a break even position. But there's a lot of work for us to do in the background to get to that place. And our submitted plan indicates at this time that £43 million deficit place. I'll conclude there if I may and hand back to the chair. Thank you.
Diolch yn iawn, Russell, am y cyflwyniad a'r adroddiad manwl yna. Ymddiheuriadau, os oes yna anhawster wedi bod efo'r cyfieithu ar-lein gyda llaw, dyn ni'n deall bod yn gweithio'n llawn rwan, popeth yn iawn, gobeithio. Dyn ni'n symud rwan at gyflwyniadau ar yr datblygiad newydd y Royal Alex ac hefyd yr EPMA, system electronic yna. Felly gynta, na i alw Steph a Jade i fyny i gyflwyno'r eitem yma, a wedyn Jane a Kate, dwi'n meddwl, i gyflwyno'r ail eitem, ac mae gennym ni ryw 20 munud, 20 minutes. Don't need to rush you. So, we'll split it in half, 10 for you. Yeah. Go.
Do we do this? Is it this? No, wrong way.
I want to hear that again.
This is
Okay.
interesting.
Just that right here.
I only clicker. Pnawn da pawb. Diolch am eich amser heddiw. Thank you very much for your time today, everybody. I'm Steph O'Donnell. I'm the Programme Director for the redevelopment of the Royal Alex, and this is my colleague Jade. And we've let her out of the cage. She's not wearing a hard hat and a high-vis vest. And Jade is the construction project manager, the capital lead for the scheme. We're going to talk about, I guess, about 3 things. I'm going to talk about what's going into the building and the services and what we want to do there. And I'll also touch on the benefits to the community. And Jade's going to talk to you and show you some images of what the site could look like in, I don't know, about 15 months' time, we hope. We don't hope, we're confident. And she'll talk to you about the methods of construction as well. So, first of all, I have to say, I noticed on the way in this morning that I had put some terrible acronyms in there, so I do apologise, and we can issue a little glossary at a later stage. You know, this has been quite a long time coming, and on and off I have worked in association with this project for 10 years, and it not only is down the road in very close proximity, but it's very dear to my heart. I really want to see this through. I think it will make a massive difference to the community we support, and I'm very proud to be able to do that for this big, huge health board in North Wales, where I'm from. So that's enough emoting for now. I'll carry on. So what we wanted to say is just cover what our strategic investment objectives are. I think I better put my glasses back, hadn't I, and look at the little screen, sorry. First one is about provision of sustainable services. So it's really important that we can provide more services for the people of the community in Rhyl and Prestatyn and deliver those. We want to really build on, there's a brilliant multi-agency team in North Denbighshire. There's a community resource team. See Mrs. Kemp over there. I know you've been very heavily involved in setting that up and running that for years, and they're really well integrated, and there's more that we can do to build on that capability. I'm really excited to do that in the Alex. We want to increase the range of local services, and we'll talk about what we're doing there in a moment. Deliver services, and this is where Jade will come in an environment that's fit for purpose, that's modern and clean and enables better quality outcomes for patients. And finally, we want to move care closer to home. So for people in Rhyl, they don't have to drive past where they live and go to Bcuhb. If they have a minor injury, they can come to their local service here. So the scope of phase one, we've called it a community reablement facility, and it's a bedded unit. So we've got a bedded unit in the hospital, and we'll talk a bit more about that. And we've been calling them ready to go home beds, but we need to really fine tune now with colleagues how that's going to work in practice and how we're going to interface with our community resource team, our local government colleagues, to deliver that. There's a minor injuries and ailments unit. We may not end up calling it ailments. We've had a bit of feedback from some of our clinical presentations. They didn't like the word, so we'll think of something else. It might be common illnesses rather than minor ailments, but we'll come up with a new name, and we'll work with the group here to get that agreed. Radiology is already on site, but we'll be moving that into new facilities, and it will be expanded. And dental services, again, they're in a very old building. It used to be a nursing home called the Edith Vizard building, if you know the site. They have 3 surgery procedure rooms now. We're going to move them into fit for purpose facilities, and we'll expand that with an additional surgery. As always, there'll be a reception area, a cafe, and we're talking a lot with Sherry and Janine and other colleagues about the third sector presence at the site and how we can maximise the benefits of that to those individuals who use the services. And obviously, of course, we've got to have proper staff rest areas and patient rest areas and so on. So this slide, after I looked at it, I don't like the way it looks, but I'll tell you what the benefits are in broad terms. It's a massive investment in the community. It's a £33.4 million capital investment from Welsh Government. That's over and above Mr. Caldicott's numbers of discretionary capital, I hasten to add, but we must stay within that number, or he'll give us what for, I'm sure, and so will his other colleagues. So that's our capital ceiling for that new build. We're going to bring services closer to home. And we're helping develop and build on really the excellent working practices from that integrated community resource team for North Denbighshire. Overall, there's some significant opportunities to increase sort of economic benefits to the area. We're going to have 40 new posts in the setting, so that there in itself is an economic benefit, and people will hopefully come and see the community and start using things, you know, pop out to the Pavilion Theatre for dinner and a show one night, that sort of thing. So we want this to be a real kind of start of building the community. There'll be, we think, up to about 200 or more than 200 patients will be seen in the reablement facility. There's about 4,500 extra bed days that we're putting into the system. And we think that has to be beneficial to Ysbyty Glen Clwyd, but we really need to now fine tune, because there's a lot of work, as Teresa mentioned, going on about What's the bed model? What's the best way to manage our discharge processes? We need to link in with those activities and absolutely nail down how this is going to work. And finally, we think about 16% of people who are currently going to the ED in Glenclwyd are from the Rhyl Prestatyn area and have minor injuries and minor illnesses, which we could divert into our new facility. And there are other people in the community as well who may prefer to come here rather than drive potentially to Llandudno or to Holywell, depending on their location. Again, we're going to recut all our data from the last 12 months and have a really good look at that with some of our clinical and operational colleagues to make sure we know who's coming, when they're coming, and how we're going to treat them. It's been really useful. I've been talking to people already today about how that's going to work in practice. So not just a chance to meet old friends at these facilities, but it's the networking opportunity. So thank you very much for that. And I think that's about all I'm going to say. Oh, yes, some dates. You probably want to know when we're doing it. So we've started. If you ever use the site or come to the site, you will see that lots of interim fencing has gone up. We call it Harris fencing. It's metal fencing. And over the next couple of weeks, this lady will keep them to task. There'll be some hoardings going up and the site will become not accessible to those of us who are not part of the construction side of the project. So that's happening now. We have a new car park as well, which is, again, our friends in Denbighshire County Council have enabled us to use the overspill car park at the Pavilion Theatre for staff and patients. So those things have started and we'll be building on that over the next couple of weeks. Our colleagues in dental will be decanting for a couple of months from the Edith Vizard building because it's very close in proximity to where some of the heavy drilling will be going on initially. So we'll move people out of there. So all that's happening in July and August. We're also going to start the work on the new building, we hope, very soon. But before we do that, there's a bit of work you've got to do on putting a big entrance in on Russell Road, if you know the site. So that's the first piece of work. We're doing some work to demolish some old extensions and some old outbuildings on the existing Royal Alex site, and that's where our energy centre will go. And Jade will probably show you the pictures in a moment. So that will start in September. We had to delay that a little bit as we had a nesting seagull, a nesting friend, which does happen on construction projects, but we're able to pull back the timescale with our contractor. So we're quite pleased to be making the progress. So the key issue, which you're probably all interested in, is when will we finish? So the build itself, the construction work should finish sometime around about September next year, depending on when we can start some of the things that we've penciled in for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And we would hope to have the first patient in before Christmas, if not in November of 2027. So that's our plan at the moment. We're going to fine tune some of the plans and come back to you with some dates. So that's where we're at the moment. And I think, oh, car parking. I put a car parking slide in. It was a really hot topic about 3 weeks ago, but we've resolved it now. So I don't really need to say too much, but you should be able to park if you're a patient in the Pavilion car park. And there are some ticket machines there that are very simple. They're so simple, I managed to use them yesterday. So pretended to be a patient and it was fine. So it's all set up. And again, if anyone's here from the council, thank you, thank you. That's been a great boon to what we're doing there. And over to Jade now, and I can go back into the cage, can't I? Thank you, Jade.
Yeah. Thanks, Steph. This is what I like to call the fun bit. We've done all the reports, we've done the design and things. We're now on site. So this is the fun bit for me, is you actually see something tangible happening now. And this is a bit of an area, a bit of a view from the junction of Russell Road and Alexandra Road. And what always sort of surprises people is we tell them this is a building of modular construction. Everybody automatically thinks in their head, oh no, porta cabins. It's not that at all. Basically, we have a structure that gets created off-site. Steel structure will be brought in, and then it sort of helps with the program and with the build phase. So this is sort of one of the artist impressions that you, if you're coming in from Russell Road, this is sort of what you'd see. And then next, just to sort of show you, this is basically the site layout. At the top there, we've got the existing building. Just on the right-hand side is the energy centre, where Steph mentioned we are demolishing some buildings. So that works will be starting sort of soon. You'll start to see a lot more activity on the site. And then the main new build is sort of sitting at the bottom of the site. If anyone's very familiar with it, it's more taking over that sort of gravel area, the car park. And you can just sort of see the Edith Vizard just on the bottom right-hand side there. And then inside the building, so as you sort of come into the building, we've got a general sort of waiting area on the right-hand side, and then this is how you sort of travel through the building and the customer journey. So we basically walk through each of these areas, have their own sort of reception areas as well. So we've got the MIU, the radiology, and the dental. We have 2 entrances on the front. So if you come into dental, you can go in through the left-hand side. And then if you're coming in for any of this other services, you can come in through the right-hand side. And then at the bottom of the site at the back, we've got the patient transfer, which is for the bedded unit. So we've worked with WAST on feedback on basically getting the ambulances in and out, you know, transfer from Glenclwyd and things like that. And then this is our bedded unit. So on the left-hand side is where we would transfer her. On the right-hand side, we've got the general reception, which if you're visiting, you would come here. Again, we've tried to make the design feel a bit more like care closer to home, with sort of the patient area, patient lounge. They've got their own area that they can sit in, that they can sort of make drinks for themselves and to help that process of getting back home, really. And then this is just, again, this is really a bit of an aerial view of what the building's going to look like. We've got two-story, and then on the top is our plant room. And then this is sort of going to be our new entrance. So as you come down Alexander Road off Marine Drive, if anyone's familiar, this is sort of what you're going to see as like the artist impressions. And as Steph mentioned, we've creating some entrances off Alexandra Road and Russell Road. We'll be doing them sort of imminently, to allow for us to get sort of more hoarding up and more control of the site to basically get the building built, really. And then at the back view, this is just our ambulance drop off. So this is what you would see from Russell Road. Yeah, pretty much that's the building. Lovely. On time, hopefully.
Happy to take questions, but we've had quite a lot of useful feedback today, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr iawn am y cyflwyniad yna ac gobeithio bod hynny'n rhoi blas i chi o'r datblygiad pwysig iawn yma yn yr Rhyl, ac dwi'n gwybod mae hwnna'n datblygiad hir ddisgwyliedig, felly gwych iawn ac pob dymuniad da gyda'r gwaith. Felly Jane a Kate rwan i roi cyflwyniad am yr EPMA. Over to you two. Diolch yn fawr.
Pnawn da, thank you very much for the opportunity to invite us here today to come and talk about the electronic prescribing medicines administration system that we've rolled out across BCU this year. I'm Jane Brady, I'm the Chief Nursing Information Officer and sit across DDAT and corporate nursing. And this is Kate. And Kate is our lead EPMA nurse. And we're actually here representing the whole of the EPMA team, not just the nursing team. So this programme really transformed how medicines are prescribed and administered across the health board. And us as a team are particularly proud that this has been a real team effort across nursing, pharmacy, medicine, operational and the digital teams. And without us all working together as a collaborative, we couldn't have been as successful as we were. Today, we're going to talk about our Go Live journey, what we've achieved together, the benefits we're already starting to see, and also our plans for the future development of EPMA. Okay. So we had quite a rapid rollout of EPMA. It was a very busy sort of few months that we did. So looking back over the last year, there was a significant change across the health board. We went from a complete paper-based system to a digital system. From the outset, we recognised that introducing EPMA at scale needed to be done safely and carefully. So we adopted a phased approach across the health board. We successfully piloted in Hedfan, and we chose that as a closed site where patients weren't flowing out too regularly, so we could learn lessons and feedback to how we then rolled out across the rest of the health board. We then followed that by east, then west and central. And we did this in about 10 weeks, I think, altogether. So it was very intense and quite stressful at times. But each deployment helped us to build confidence and continuously improve how we did that rollout across the sites. This approach only succeeded because of that collaborative working, because of how nursing, pharmacy, medical, operational and digital teams work together. We collected feedback throughout each implementation that actually then helped us learn lessons as we moved to the next site. And the team supported each other, sharing learning across the health board, and not just the EPMA team, but the feedback from the users out there that were using the system. This allowed us to learn from that feedback and actually learn for how we're going to use this on other projects in the future as we go along. What we are most proud of, though, is that we continue to deliver this major change while maintaining our focus on patient safety and supporting frontline staff every step of the way. We had 24-hour support during the first week for the teams. We had out-of-hours support on call teams once the 24 hours stepped down, and there were people floor walking continuously during that go live period. Okay. EPMA, as you now know, is live across acute, community and mental health inpatient services, including ED and our ITU services. It's supporting care across more than 2,000 beds and is used by over 7,000 clinical staff every single day. Most importantly, more than 43,000 patients have already benefited from safer digital medicines management. But behind every one of those numbers are the nurses, pharmacists, doctors, operational teams across the whole of BCU who've worked together to make this happen.
Thank you, Jane. So where are we now? So we've officially finished the implementation stage. As Jane said, that took about 10 weeks from start to finish. We're now in the optimization phase, so we clearly haven't down tools and all disappeared. We're still very much visible to the clinical areas. We're still continuing to listen to staff, gaining staff feedback. And this is really important to shape future improvements and has been incorporated into the lessons learned work. We remain on track with our post-implementation review and programme closure activities, which is getting ever closer. Site visits are ongoing and quarterly newsletters via our Bcuhb site are now something that we've started to help us stay connected with the users and understand where further support is needed, because just because we've implemented doesn't mean that we, like I said, that we stop. We're still hearing issues, we're still helping people, we're still trying to make sure that people are using the system correctly and safely at the end of the day. And we're also working closely with Better Meds, our supplier already, to look at an upgrade for later this year to the system to make sure that we're current with the upgrade phase. Yeah. Whichever that we're using. So it's constantly ongoing. Benefits, I know been lots of talk about benefits from all the speakers this afternoon. At the end of the day, the benefits are why we do this. And we need to be able to show that there are great benefits to this system. So although we haven't officially started recording and reporting on these benefits, we're already beginning to see very tangible benefits already. Sustainability wise, already we can see that we are reducing the number of paper that we are using, the number of trees, 29.9 trees saved to date, and this will be constantly increasing on day to day. Staff engagement has been exceptional. Over 7,000 colleagues are trained to use the system, and this number is constantly evolving with new staff coming on board and students as well. That's been a newer part to our training plan, but this is something that is very much evolving. So staff feedback that I mentioned before, it was really encouraging to say that 78% of that feedback was positive, and that was not just neutral, it was positive or it was very positive. So we were definitely at the higher end of the scale. And bearing in mind that we started this feedback in May, I think it was, well, we'd only just rolled out into some areas at the end of March. So it was still very, very new to a lot of areas, but already we're getting very positive feedback. Antimicrobial stewardship, that's a big one in terms of benefits. We're already seeing some improvements in that. It helps the clinicians record and review antibiotic prescribing more consistently, which is obviously extremely important to the patient. And although the changes are small individually, then collectively they do all support safer care and stronger clinical governance for the project. One of the most immediate benefits has been the removal of illegible prescription charts. Don't need to explain what that means to anybody. We've all seen it, experienced it, been on the receiving end of it. And this has benefits to the patients, the organisation and the staff. It's safer medication process, stronger assurance, better information. And for clinicians, it means better access to accurate medicines information where they need it. We've got better medicines data that we are recording already, and it's strengthening reporting and for audit and improvement purposes. By reducing duplication and removing the need to interpret the handwritten prescriptions, we are helping to release valuable clinician time back to the patients where it needs to be. So every efficiency gained creates more opportunity for staff to focus on direct patient care.
So as Kate alluded to, the go live was a major milestone, but actually now is when the hard work starts. This is when our focus now turns to the optimization, consolidation and continuous improvement. When you go live with any system, it doesn't stop the day you go live. You have to keep making it better, improving to make sure that we're keeping patients safe. As shown on this slide, our priorities are going to be strengthening training and best practice guidance, and also then expanding out into the areas that are not live, so into outpatients, into our minor injury units, and also working with teams, the EPMA team and the clinicians out on the floor to develop the roadmap for future better upgrades. And as part of that within BCU, we're trying to do that across Wales as well to get some standardisation and consistency, but also learning lessons from other users of Better Meds across the UK. What have they done? How have they found? How does that develop into their roadmap? This next phase will continue to be developed in partnership between all the clinicians involved in EPMA, all the users of EPMA and the digital and operational teams. We will continue to work closely with Better Meds and get the staff feedback, with our main focus being clinically led and focused on patient safety. What has made this project successful is not just the technology we've implemented, it's the collective commitment of all the teams involved, not just the EPMA team implemented, but the teams out there using this every day. We couldn't have done this without their support and their buy-in. And really, it's just a thank you to everybody who's contributed to this achievement. I think back in January, we never thought we'd do it by the end of March, and we did, and the team were amazing to do that. So thank you very much.
Iawn, diolch yn iawn i chi am y cyflwyniad yna. Diolch am y ddau gyflwyniad. A tra bod y cyfarfod yma, cyfarfod blynyddol yn un sydd yn lled-ffurfiol, dyn ni wastad o'r farn fod yn gyfle hefyd i staff rannu y gwaith maen nhw'n gwneud a datblygiadau sy'n digwydd yn y bwrdd iechyd. Felly diolch o galon i chi am y gwaith a diolch i chi am ddod heddiw i roi chydig bach o gefndir ac chydig bach o wybodaeth i ni am y datblygiadau yna. Y ddau beth yn bwysig o ran y ffordd dyn ni'n mynd i gynnig gwasanaethau iechyd a lles i'r boblogaeth. Reit, dyn ni'n troi rwan at gwestiynau a'r mae yna nifer y gwestiynau wedi dod i law yn unol a'r cais i gwestiynau cael eu cyflwyno cyn y cyfarfod heddiw. Mae'r cwestiynau ar y atebion i gyd yn cael eu coeddi ar ein gwefan wedi'r cyfarfod yma heddiw. Felly fydd atebion llawn ar gael i bawb. Mae yna hefyd ar gael, os ydych chi'n dymuno, mae yna gopi o'r cwestiynau ar atebion, chydig o gopïau ar gael gan Laura, dwi'n meddwl, os oes rhywun yn dymuno. ond bydd y cyfan yn cael ei coeddi ar-lein I bawb I ddarllen. Mae yna rhywbeth fel dros 2 ddwsin o gwestiynau. Dwi ddim am ddarllen nhw gyd, ond dwi am grybwyll beth yw'r themau. A mae'n amryw o themau digon difyr. Y thema gyntaf ar un sydd wedi denu dipyn o ymateb ydy tywyn a gwasanaethau iechyd a lles yn yr ardal honno. A mae yna bobl yn dod o gyfeiriadau gwahanol o ran y cwestiynau maen nhw'n holi. Mae rhai yn dweud agorwch yr ysbyty, ail agorwch yr ysbyty. Mae rhai yn sôn am y gwasanaethau sydd ar gael yn y ganolfan iechyd ac yn codi cwestiynau am hynny, ac mae yna eraill yn sôn bod mater dyfodol ysbyty tywyn, fel maen nhw'n cyfeirio ato fo, yn adlewyrchu yr angen I ystyried cynnal gwasanaethau iechyd ac yn wir gwasanaethau cyhoeddus yn yr ardal yna o Sir Feirionnydd. Felly, na I grynhoi ychydig ar yr atebion. Yn gyntaf, peth pwysica I ddweud bod gennym ni fel bwrdd gyfarfod yfory bydd yn penderfynu ar y camau nesaf o ran ysbyty tywyn a'r gwasanaethau sy'n cael ei darparu. Felly, bydd yn anoeth I mi sôn am unrhyw atebion nes y bod y bwrdd wedi wneud y penderfyniad I fynd allan I ymgynghori yn ffurfiol. Dwi yn gwybod bod yna gyfres o gyfarfodydd wedi bod yn hywyn ac yn wir yn ne Meirionnydd yn gyffredinol yn cynnal cyfarfodydd gydag grwpiau bobl yn mynd I gynghorau cymuned. Mae'r cyfarfodydd yna wedi bod yn drwyadl iawn ac mae'r gwaith yna yn helpu siapio y camau nesaf. Felly bydd y bwrdd yn penderfynu yfory ar beth fydd y camau nesaf a beth fydd yn cael ei ystyried yn y camau nesaf. Dwi am jyst ychwanegu 1 neu 2 bethau dwi'n meddwl sy'n werth I ni gofio. Un ydy, dwi yn cytuno bod y drafodaeth yn ehangach na dim ond gwasanaethau iechyd a lles a dyfodol yr ysbyty. Gadewch ni gofio, please, di'r ysbyty ddim wedi cael. Mae yna bobl yn deud, mae'r ysbyty wedi cael ail agorwch yr ysbyty. Dydy'r ysbyty heb gau. Mae yna ward sydd heb barhau I weithredu fel oedd oherwydd prinder staff. Felly, jyst cael y terminoleg yn gywir yn bwysig, neu mae pobl yn ailadrodd pethau. Dwi yn deall y pryderon mae pobl yn mynegu oherwydd dwi'n deall yr ardal. O'n i'n gweithio yn yr ardal ac yn byw yn yr ardal am rai blynyddoedd ac mae'n ehangach na mater yr ysbyty. Oherwydd mae pobl yn yr ardaloedd gwledig yn aml yn teimlo bod nhw'n cael eu amddifadu o wasanaethau. Mae hynny yn wir I ddeud ac mae'n bwysig bod ni yn cydnabod hynny ac yn deall hynny. Dwi'n gobeithio bydd y drafodaeth bydd yn digwydd os ydy'r bwrdd yn penderfynu fory, yn drafodaeth ddim gymaint ar beth sydd ddim yn cael ei gynnig, ond yn hytrach beth sydd angen yn yr ardal. A mae hwnna'n drafodaeth fawr byddwn ni'n dweud. Mae'n fwy na un ward mewn ysbyty. Os edrychwch chi ar batrwm ardaloedd fel yr ardal yna o Wynedd, fe welwch chi diboblogi sylweddol ac yn ogystal â hynny newid yn natur y boblogaeth a phoblogaeth yn gyffredinol yn hyn ag ardaloedd eraill o'r sir. Mae yn anodd denu staff i'r ardal. Dwi ddim yn sôn am yr ysbyty neu gwasanaeth iechyd yn unig. Dwi'n sôn am ystod y wasanaethau. Mae'n anodd recriwtio yn yr ardal. A dwi'n credu bod na rhywbeth gallwn ni ystyried ydy gofyn i partneriaid fel Cyngor Sir, y Llywodraeth, i ddod at ei gilydd i ystyried wel o'r gorau, beth yw dyfodol ardaloedd fel hyn, pa wasanaethau sydd angen i cynnal ac yn y blaen. Mae drafodaeth ehangach ar gwasanaeth iechyd, dwi'n credu. Ac ar hynny, un ple, wrth i chi ymateb, mae'r iaith ydych chi'n defnyddio a'r ffordd ydych chi'n mynegu hun yn bwysig. Dyn ni gyd yn deall bod gan bobl deimladau a farn cryfion, mae hynny'n dda beth, ond os gwelwch yn dda, byddwch yn barchus a chwrtes yn y ffordd ydych chi yn mynegu eich barn. Felly, mae yna bobl eraill yn cyfeirio nid dim ond o dan y faner tywyn, ond mae rhywun fel Tom Brooks yn sôn am ei brofiad o fel cynrychiolydd sydd yn mynd o gwmpas ysbytai cymunedol. Mae o'n codi'r cwestiwn o ofal yn y gymuned ac yn y blaen, ac mae'n sôn am rhywbeth o Teresa yn cyfeirio at gynharach sef community by design a beth fydd y cyfle i fanteisio ar y polisi yna a sut bydd hynny'n edrych. A dwi'n meddwl bod hynny yn gwestiwn dyn ni'n awyddus iawn i fynd i'r afel yna fo fel bwr iechyd, ac mae yna waith yn mynd i fod fydd gobeithio yn ein harwain ni ar hyd y llwybr yna. Mae yna hefyd uchelgais gyda ni fel bwrdd i symud i weld mwy o wasanaethau a mwy o bwyslais ar wasanaethau yn y gymuned yn hytrach na'r pwyslais yn parhau ar ofal mewn ein prif ysbytai yn unig. Mae hynny yn rhan o uchelgais y Llywodraeth, dyn ni'n ymwybodol hynny, ond mae hefyd yn rhan o'n bwriad a'n uchelgais ni fel bwr yn y gystal. Felly gadewch i ni gael y drafodaeth a hynny yn adeiladol ac yn gadarnhaol a trafodaeth sydd angen nid dim ond ar gyfer heddiw ond ar gyfer y dyfodol a'r cenhedlaeth sydd yn dod ar ein holau ni. Mae yna rhai cwestiynau am tywyn mae pobl yn cyfeirio at yr aelod o'r Senedd lleol, Mabon ap Gwynfor sydd bellach yn weinidog iechyd wrth gwrs, wel, gai eich cyfeirio chi at yr aelod o'r Senedd i ateb y cwestiynau hynny, dyn ni ddim yn gallu ateb ar ei ranno a byddwn ni ddim yn mynd tro gwneud. Felly, ar hynny, o ran tywyn, mi fydd eitem fel dwi'n dweud yn cael ei drafod yn y cyfarfod bwrdd fory. Mae croeso chi i ymuno ar-lein os ydych chi'n dymuno i wrando ar drafodaeth ac unrhyw benderfyniad. Rhai o'r cwestiynau eraill, mae Mr Milnes yn codi mater ynglyn ag cyfarfod efo'r cadeirydd a'r prif weithredydd, ac dwi bob amser yn hapus i gyfarfod gyda phobl dim ond i ychwanegu bod y cyfarfod ddim yn gyfle i rywun ailgodi mater sydd wedi penderfynu rai blynyddoedd ynghynt, yn arbennig os mae'n ymwneud efo unigolyn sy'n gweithio i'r bwr iechyd, ag trafodaeth sydd yn ymwneud â profiad pobl o ddefnyddio gwasanaethau, mae hynny'n cael ei groesawu bob amser, ond nid trafodaeth sydd yn ymwneud â materion gweithredol, operational, byddwn ni'n dweud. Dwi yn cyfarfod 2 berson gwahanol wythnos nesaf neu wythnos wedi hynny, enghraifft sydd yn sgil eu profiad nhw o ddefnyddio gwasanaethau iechyd, a dwi'n falch iawn bod nhw am rannu profiad nhw a bydd gennym ni bethau i ddysgu Dwi'n gwybod bod Carol wedi cyfarfod nifer fawr o bobl dros y blynyddoedd a weithiau ar y cyd yn do. Felly, dyn ni'n hapus i gyfarfod, ond os ydych chi yn cysylltu efo ni, cofiwch bod gynnon ni swyddogion sydd yn gwneud eu gwaith ac sy'n dilyn canllawiau ac tra bod ni'n croesawu awgrymiadau, mae rhaid ni gofio bod gynnon ni cyfundrefnau sydd yn weithredol ac dyn ni am glynu at y cyfundrefnau yna. Mae yn cyfaill ni David Graves yn codi materion ymwneud â iechyd meddwl ac adroddiad coleg brenhinol. Dych chi'n cofio rhai ohonoch chi bod na argymellion. Ac bellach mae yna fwrdd wedi sefydlu o fewn y bwrdd iechyd pwyllgor i sicrhau bod ni'n gweithredu yr argymellion yn yr adroddiad hwnnw. A hyd yma mae yna 30 o'r argymellion yn parhau angen i sicrhau bod nhw yn cael eu gweithredu tra bod y gweddill eisoes ar waith. Felly mae yna waith i wneud o hyd. Mae David hefyd yn codi mater yn wneud â chwynion a pobl yn, be di'r gair, chwibannu'r, dwi'n yn siŵr be di'r cyfieithad, whistleblowing ydi o yn Saesneg, beth bynnag, a mae David yn codi sawl achos wedi bod, ac mae hynny'n cael ei nodi yn yr ateb bod yna 30 o gwynion wedi dod yn ystod y cyfnod, rhai ohonyn nhw, 7 ohonyn nhw yn y categori yna. Mae hwn yn mynd yn ôl i 2012, dwi'n meddwl. Nifer o gwestiynau dienw, rhai yn rhannu o'i profiad nhw o ddefnyddio gwasanaethau iechyd, ac dyn ni'n bob amser yn ceisio cyfeirio pobl at y gwasanaeth sydd yn ymateb i unrhyw gwynion neu unrhyw bryderon sydd gen bobl, ac mae yna yn yr ateb yn llawn defnyddiwch y gyfundrefn yna, y drefn yna, os gwelwch yn dda, ar gyfer codi unrhyw bryderon sydd gennych chi, ac mae'r tîm yna yn dîm ardderchog yn un diwyd iawn sydd yn ceisio sicrhau bod yna atebion i'ch ymholiadau. Dwi jyst yn checio os dwi wedi cyfro pob dim. Dwi'n meddwl mod i wedi, a mae'r atebion yn llawn, wrth gwrs fel dwi'n dweud, unwaith eto ar gael i bawb. Mae gennym ni chydig o amser os oes gan unrhyw un gwestiwn, gan gofio yr hyn dwi wedi dweud eisoes, ond os oes gennych chi gwestiwn yn arbennig, os mae'n ymwneud â'n busnes i heddiw, bydda ni yn sicr yn cael ei groesawu. Ar-lein mae'r adroddiad blynyddol yn llawn, ac mae yna gopïau heddiw ar y byddau o adroddiad adolygiad blynyddol, dwi'n meddwl sydd yn rhyw gipolwg o'r adroddiad blynyddol. Unrhyw un, unrhyw gwestiwn. Mr Mike Parry, sydd wedi dod yma o Bwlleli. Mr Mike Parry yn aelod o'r bwrdd a wedi gwneud cyfraniad gwerthfawr iawn. Felly, Mike.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Thank you very much. As the chair has intimated, I'm a former associate member of the board. What I wanted to ask was, briefly, could you tell me what the future of the Ablet unit is, and in particular, there were problems with accommodation problems for the perinatal unit. What's the latest on that front, please? Because as you know, I had a particular interest in that subject. Diolch.
Diolch o'r iawn, Mike, a fydd Teresa'n gallu ateb hwnna gobeithio. Diolch, Teresa.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Thank you. I'll answer in English as you've asked in English today, Mike. The work continues. We are in dialogue with Welsh Government and I'm working closely with Stuart, who's our Director of Estates and Environment in the Health Board. And actually, we had a catch-up yesterday to prepare for the next project board, which is in August. So you are right, it has been challenged at times, given costs and inflation and working through the options. We are in discussions on the building, given some Welsh Government work on the strategy which is underway just now and some reviews that they're undertaking. So for me at the moment, my plan is to take a paper to the Executive Committee, which is chaired by Carol, so that we have a full discussion and probably then share it with board members at the right time. But we are in discussions with Welsh Government capital colleagues and also the mental health team in the centre. Oh, perinatal, I mentioned perinatal as well. Thank you. Perinatal, we're still planning on going into Caledfrin, of course, is the plan. Linking in with the team. The team are doing really well, Mike, and I know you've been a big supporter of those team over the years. So we'll continue to work with them, but the plan is still for Caledfrin. But we are linking in with them. And of course, the work in Chester has really, I think, moved us forwards and hoping to move forward with some of the standards work, which I know you'll be aware of, Mike. That would be a real coup for us as a health board, I think, and for the team to recognise their excellent work.
Diolch yn iawn, Teresa. Diolch, Mike. Dwi bron ag awgrymu bod ti'n dod i wneud rhyw agoriad swyddogol rhywbryd yn sgil yr holl waith ti'n wneud dros blynyddoedd. Reit, cwestiwn nesa, dwi'n meddwl, newch chi gyflwyno eich hun wrth ofyn y cwestiwn gyda llaw. Diolch yn iawn.
Prynhawn da. That's as far as my Welsh goes. I've been attempting to learn for 2 years and I'm continuing, I'm glad to say.
Da iawn.
I'm Di Drummond from the Older People's Forum in Tywyn. Unfortunately, we didn't have the translation apparatus, so we could hear what the responses were to the questions that people from Tywyn have given you. I'm not asking for those now, but if we can have a video of that or write-up of that, we have colleagues who are Welsh speakers, very much Welsh speakers first. But I would just like to say one thing. What you were talking about RIL and the unit that you are building here sounds really interesting and really very good and very positive for the people of RIL. And you're saying it's so that it's more community-based. People don't have to go to Llandudno. I don't know how far away Llandudno is from RIL, but in Tywyn, we've got an increasing problem. We've got certain outpatients provision in hospital. We've not got beds. People, often very elderly, end up in beds for step-down care, Dolgellau, or in Machynlleth. And Machynlleth is 39 minutes away travelling. So I'm just questioning how much would it cost to just re-enable the very good unit, the combined GP practice and hospital that we have in Tywyn, which has been partially produced by the result of many people giving over many years. I heard from one of the things that you were saying about the problem of recruitment and recruitment of staff in Tywyn. And I understand that, but it's an ongoing problem and nurses have been recruited, but seemingly they work often in Dolgellau, not so much in Machynlleth, although I'm not 100% sure of that. So in other words, I'm just putting it to you that there is a need there. It's an aging population. it's a population which increases hugely over the summer. And I'm just saying, do you really think about Tawyn with a Y? So many miles away. It took us over 2 hours to get here today. And over roads which initially, over the first number of miles, are not good at all. So can I just put it to you, please think again about Tawyn. I know that we are discussing options before they go to the public in Tawyn soon, but we question the viability of some of those options. Okay, thank you very much.
Diolch yn iawn am y cwestiynau. I think you arrived after we started following your long journey, as you said. So I think you missed out on the distribution of the translation equipment, unfortunately. But da iawn efo Cymraeg, and I hope you're getting encouraged and supported to do that, as you've said. There will be a copy of the recording of all of this online. And what I've said, if you want to suffer hearing me again, but with the translation, then it is available. But I said many things, some of which you have referred to, but the main thing was board a meeting tomorrow. The papers are online. The board meeting will be broadcast online, and the board will be making a decision what happens next. I'm not going to preempt that today. What you have said has been reflected over a period, I know, because we've had reports following the various meetings and discussions that have taken place. I also said I know the area very well, having worked and lived there myself, or not too far away. And yeah, the infrastructure in general is pretty poor. But you do have a train, but I know it takes a while to get there, but you do have a train. But thank you for traveling today, and thank you for joining us. It's appreciated. Rhywun arall, unrhyw gwestiwn arall? Martin, ti isio cyflwyno dy hun, os gweled ni dda? Diolch.
It's Martin Williams from Anglesey. I've gone through the system over the years now, and things are improving, from my own perspective with the dermatology and things. But I'm just a little bit closer to home with the Stanley Hospital in Holyhead. There's a unit there, the St David's Hospice unit, which closed end of last year. What is the future? What is the thinking moving forward? Because that's totally been done at I think there's 4 beds there. And you're talking of bed jamming in Gwynedd, etc. What's the future with that section of Stanley Hospital?
Diolch, Martin. That is a good question, which Carol will answer in a moment. Just to underline that the hospice and the provision there was and is under the name of St David's Hospice, of course, not the health board, although we work very closely with them. So perhaps you can give an insight into what's happening, Carol. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. And Martin, thank you for once again coming to the AGM. It's good to see you, and for feeding back that you're seeing things improving as well. So thank you. Yes, absolutely. In relation to St David's Hospice, we work with a number of hospices. They're a really key part of the provision of services in the community. They are charity-based, and the Welsh Government has been looking at how hospices get funded. So you may well have seen some of the coverage there, because many of the charities have been concerned with the cost of living, that their donations have gone down. That has been part of the reason why St David's felt that they couldn't really run 2 centres, and that the centre in Penrose Stanley, as you say, was was a much smaller unit, so to offer that service in Llandudno. Now, for us, we want to see really good services in our communities, and particularly those that are often further away from the more specialist sort of centres. So what the team did, and led by the nurse director, Angela Wood, was look to redesign what is it that the district nursing team and the other community team, as well as the staff in the hospital itself, could provide instead. So there's been some expansion of that. And there's been a very close tracking of whether people on Anglesey are having the palliative care that they value very much from the centre, either in the community or whether they're travelling to Llandudno, or whether they're not having it at all. And we've got that report coming through now. It's very carefully monitored. To date, patients' care has been accommodated, supported, and enabled largely through that community. So people in going into people's homes, or in the Stanley Hospital itself. But we're keeping this under close review because we want to make sure that people aren't disadvantaged because of where they live. Now, that is a challenge, of course, for us with such a big geographical area, but that's what we want to make sure. So Martin will write up that answer, and if I've got more information, I'll put that in there, because I think it's of interest to yourself, but also other members of the community. And we've been discussing with the elected members as well, the members of Senedd and the MPs, so that they're up to date. So we'll publish that response as well. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr, Caro, a diolch am y cwestiwn. Unrhyw un arall, unrhyw gwestiwn? Os nad oes, yna dwi am ddod ar y cyfarfod i ben. Gan ddiolch i chi yn gyntaf os ydych chi wedi ymuno â ni yn fyw ar-lein, ymddeiriadau os oedd yna unrhyw drafferthion gyda'r cyfieithu ar un adeg. Diolch i chi am fod yn bresennol yma efo ni yn yr Rhyl pnawn yma yn y lleoliad yma hyfryd. Diolch i bawb sydd wedi bod yn rhan o'r ffair a'r ystodinau. Diolch am y holl staff. A diolch i Helen a'r tîm sydd wedi helpu trefnu y digwyddiad yma. Diolch hefyd i Pam a'i thîm hi am helpu rhedeg y sioe mor effeithiol ac arfer. Diolch am y cyfieithu a diolch i John am y dechnoleg. Mae'n dipyn o gamp roi cyfarfod fel hwn at ei gilydd mewn lleoliad gwbl newydd i ni. Ac dyna rhywbeth i ni ystyried ar gyfer y flwyddyn nesaf, sut dyn ni am redeg cyfarfod fel hyn. Byddwn ni'n falch o dderbyn eich sylwadau neu awgrymiadau os ydych chi'n efo syniadau sut dylai cyfarfod fel hyn cael ei gynnal. Ac fel nath Mr Milnes atgoffa i be wedes i llynedd, dwi am ddweud eto eleni. Os dim rhaid i chi aros am gyfarfod cyffredinol i godi cwestiwn, gallwch chi sgwennu ato ni unrhyw amser os ydych chi'n dymuno, a mae nifer ohonych chi yn gwneud, a nawn ni geisio sicrhau bod chi'n cael atebion i'ch ymweliadau. Diolch yn iawn i chi, ac siwrne saff yn ôl adre chi sydd wedi teithio yn bell yn arbennig. Diolch yn iawn.